The Pirates walk off the Yankees in Game 3, but the weekend story was already written on the way there. That's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Pirates your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And it's a Monday. The first segment of every Monday is what? As we learned last week, the Weekend Rewind. We're going to go back and look at what happened this weekend, much of which we Pirates fans probably don't really want to remember, but we're gonna anyway. Pirates lost 2 of 3 to the Yankees in this home opening series, and they were offensively extremely consistent. They scored 4 runs in the first 2 games, and only once was it close to enough to win a ball game. That happened to be this one, 5-4 in extras. Losing the first 2, 9-4 and 10-4, the Yankees came in tearing the cover off the ball. So much so that you could easily ignore the state of their pitching staff and how it might fare against a better offense, but I kind of digress here a little bit. They continued to do so in this series, really until they came up against Andrew Heaney, who simply shoved 7 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, and 10 strikeouts. That is not Heaney as advertised, my friends. That was either extremely undisciplined hitting from the Yankees or a very, very on Andrew Heaney, who has that in him on occasion. I just have never seen it come out in the strikeouts like that. 10 strikeouts for a guy that pitches the way Heaney does, along with 7 innings. I'm not sure you'll ever see that again, quite frankly. He was incredible. He really was. And this was against a formidable all the time and red hot right now lineup. Impressive stuff. I can't even begin to speak to how key he is with the Jared Jones injury. I mean, he could very well determine whether they have enough or have to try relying on a kid perhaps too early. I mean, that wouldn't be a big deal if you weren't already doing it with the 5th and 6th spots of the rotation. I suggested on this show last week that I would use Berucki and Santana based on matchups to close out games. And in their first opportunity Sunday against the Yankees to do that, that's exactly what they did. And guess what? This too failed. Santana got through his inning unscathed, but Ryan Berucki was incapable of holding the lead and getting his first save. He blew it. In extras, Caleb Ferguson and Joey Wentz held the Yankees scoreless. Jack Sawinski stole third base with 1 out, and Tommy Pham at the plate setting up the game-winning score on a deep fly to left. Pham had an abysmal start to this season. He has been terrible. So to say the least, I didn't expect this to end positively. Good thing it did, though. The Pirates earned this win. They really did. They've earned a few wins that the bullpen has given away for them this year. So it was good to see them hold on to one for once that they actually earned. Let's talk a little bit about some of the hitters that looked that we've got a little bit of a sample size now. It's not enough to judge anybody's season on yet, but we're starting to see at least a few trends. The first thing I want to point out, because this guy was a pretty big target in the offseason. A lot of people really didn't see his place on the team, certainly didn't think he's good enough to hold down a spot. But IKF is hitting .333. He's hit 9th most of the season. I know a lot of us had him listed as the potential problem, but he's been anything but. Still leaves something to be desired defensively, if you ask me. Made a crucial error that actually kind of led to the breakdown that caused the blown save with Berucki. I think they probably do get out of that inning if he manages to get that out. So, not the greatest. but he's getting on base at a 444 clip. So it's kind of like, where are you gonna? You're looking at this lineup, people that are getting on base right now. Man, you got to accept it. Credit where due. He is hitting like he did in Toronto before he went on the IL. That's what you want to see from him. Brian Reynolds' stats are still not good. They weren't going to be after the way he started the season. That has not been pleasant either. But Brian Reynolds had a couple swings in this series in particular that are potentially important. He hit that home run right-handed, and usually when he starts getting things together right-handed, that's when things really start falling into place for Brian. And then a big double today, lefty. A gap shot when they really, really needed one, scored a couple runs, important stuff. With Brian, I guess I've observed him long enough to know there's clear signs when he's starting to come out of a slump. When you start seeing him making better contact right-handed, especially for power, unlike many switch hitters, his right and left side really play off each other. When he's struggling left-handed, and he obviously is going to face an awful lot more right-handed pitchers than he does left-handed pitchers. But when he's really struggling left-handed, there's almost nothing that gets him back in a good spot than hitting right-handed. I think a lot of people kind of fail to realize with a lot of switch hitters, because they see them face so many right-handed pitchers, they kind of immediately start to think of the left-handed side as their dominant side. Well, the reality is for a lot of fielders, the right-handed side is their natural side hitting the baseball, and that's no different for Brian Reynolds. So there's something about that. And a little birdie told me that somebody had a nice talk with Dad this weekend too, and that always helps Brian. So it's good to start seeing some of his stuff coming together now. He's taking it better at bat. Doesn't seem to be as frozen on that third strike or that borderline third strike. Looks like he's willing to take a hack at it a little bit more often. Yeah, I don't know what to say about this because we talked about Brian Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz being off to sluggish starts a little bit last weekend. And this team goes nowhere without those two. So you have to have it one way or another. And Brian coming out of it is important. Cruz looked good at the plate, made a fine defensive play, followed by a poor defensive play. That's the story with the guy who's figuring it out at this level. So far, his outfield experience has been a bit more bad than good, I'd say. But he's starting to show some signs of better breaks. He's starting to understand his limitations a bit more. Things like that. It just needs to improve quickly because turning singles into triples is unsustainable. I don't care what kind of pitchers you have. If that's the kind of defense getting played up the middle behind them, well, you're going to have innings that aren't the cleanest turn into disaster innings, not unlike what got them to extras today in the first place. When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure that they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients has also partnered with two-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF-certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. Whether you're recovering after a workout or need an energy boost, their grass-fed whey protein and pre-workout delivery give real results. Visit justingredients.us and use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off. And for more wellness tips, follow @JustIngredients on Instagram. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. We're going to talk about an unpleasant subject next, unfortunately, injuries. We've got a lot of injuries we got to talk about. We need to talk about the concerns that rise from those and the ramifications that come out of that. We're going to do that real quick, but before we do, make sure you take a second to hit the like button. Give me a subscribe. Make sure you think about commenting underneath. Let me know what you think of the show. I really like to hear what you think about the subjects that we talk about. Injury update. Okay, Brian Reynolds' tricep is still an issue. We have not heard an update. We do not know how long this is going to go on, but we know it is creating a weird situation with Andrew McCutchen being forced to play the field. How long can he last doing this? It's been okay. I mean, there's been a couple balls I think maybe don't touch down if, say, Jack Sawinski's out there in right field. A lot faster, probably gets to at least the gap shot that happened yesterday between he and Cruz. I would have to say there's a good chance Jack Sawinski gets there. And I'm not sure what you lose. Andrew McCutchen made a really nice play in the home opener. So is he playing a little bit better out there than I think a lot of people thought? Yeah. I don't think it's ever been about can he play the position? Can he get a burst of speed to do something he has to do out there on a fly ball? Yeah, I believe he can. I think we've seen that. I think the question has always been, how much can he do of this? How long can you try this without risking his season? Are his knees good enough that he can do this 3-4 times a week? Because he's also swinging one of the better bats right now, as far as like getting on base. So it's not like you want to completely bench him, but if you have to use Brian Reynolds as the DH for, let's say, 3 weeks to a month, I mean, I'm sorry, as long as Brian's hitting, this is going to be the only way you see Andrew. They talked about trying him out at first base a little bit. I'm not 100% sure how productive that has been. I don't know if they trust it to travel from practice to game. I don't know if it's something he's even comfortable with. I could see them trying to find a way to squeeze him into a game another way like that, though. And the best solution really is if Andrew McCutchen can play the field 2-3 times a week. They should probably consider playing Andrew McCutchen 2-3 times a week in the outfield. It's a lot better than, I think, trying to teach a 38-year-old how to play a new position. I mean, he's got absolutely no infield experience whatsoever. I don't see it going well. I'm not 100% sure I want to see it go well. The net positive to even making it happen at this point is getting, Valdez off the field or Andy Rodriguez. Those are the two guys you'd get off the field. I think you probably want to see more Andy Rodriguez. And as far as Kutch goes, why do I want to invest an awful lot of time in teaching him something that he's going to do, 2-3 times this year? Let's be real. In a perfect world, he's not playing there once Horwitz is healthy and, they have their full complement of guys that they want to use over there. I don't know. It's a strange situation. It's been interesting to watch it play out. I've already seen Kutch play in the field 2 more times than I expected to this whole year. So let's see what they do with it. Came to light that Nick York had been placed on the IL in AAA, retroactive to the 4th. Doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but still, I kind of primarily saying this to earn myself a vacation from you telling me he should be here, because he can't be right now. Colin Holderman goes on the IL with a sprained knee, and Chase Shugart replaces him. Boy, this is one of those candidates for sort of kind of injury, isn't it? He hasn't pitched well. There really could be something wrong. There really could be just, hey, we got to get this guy down there and see if we can fix him. So a lot of the responsibility for the initial losses in the first couple series were put on the shoulders of David Bednar and Colin Holderman. We're now, about 10 games into this season, and Colin Holderman and David Bednar are no longer here to be the poster children for loss. So our two new bullpen options that were supposed to fill out the back end were not able to get the job done in this contest either. The back end of the bullpen is a real problem, and until they solidify it, they will not have a comfortable victory. They don't have the kind of offense to earn a comfortable victory with the bullpens this filled with holes. That just can't happen. Jared Triolo was scratched last minute from the game yesterday with lower back soreness. Is there anything about Jared Triolo that's not going to try to be like Brian Hayes? Light hitting, does better when he hits the ball to the opposite field. Looks like he should have a lot more pop than he's shown. Great fielder, and now a bad back. So hopefully he's going to be okay. Jared Triolo is an important member of this team, and at second base, you're left with Adam Frazier. And Manuel Valdez is not a good second baseman. He's done okay at first base, but you don't really want to have to use him over there. Nick York being on the IL takes him out of that. And Nick Gonzalez, we found out, is in that walking boot, and he's probably going to be out a few more weeks at least. That's that's all of a sudden a position where we thought we had 20 people to play. We don't. So something to think about at second base. You're going to see a lot more of Adam Frazier, and as silly as we all thought that signing was, I talked about IKF earlier. Well, we should probably talk about Adam Frazier. I'm not saying he's putting up great numbers, but he probably saved the game again today with a great defensive play, ranging far to his left and doing a spin around at first base. He's played professional second base, pretty crisp second base. He's doing a good job turning the double plays. He's had a couple crucial hits. And to be honest, he's played an awful lot. Probably an awful lot more than he or the team expected him to. And he's holding it down. So as dumb as that signing was, as much as none of us liked it, at least it's making sense right now. It's working out, and he feels like a necessary component. Brian Hayes is another player I wanted to touch on. He's not injured, and I guess in a way that's a story at this point. He's lasted into the season for a little while. He's been exactly what Hayes needs to be. Gets on base, pitching in with some pop here and there, advancing the lineup, and again, he's stayed healthy. If he does all that for a season, this is a solid member of this team that a lot of us have written off as little more than a contract we were going to have to pay for a while, no matter what. So it's really good to get anything out of Brian Hayes, let alone what I think is pretty good play. I hope they don't get greedy with him and start moving him up in the lineup too much. I really like him down in the 6 and 7 part of this lineup. I think it keeps the pressure off of him to do more than what Brian Hayes is supposed to do. It looks like they want to lead him off a little bit. I'm okay with that as long as he starts taking a few more walks. I think he needs to maybe add that component back in when he's leading off. But other than that, I have no complaints about him. I think he's more than earning his paycheck. He's playing really, really good defense, actually. And boy, this infield needs it. Because IKF, I'm sorry, I just talked about the hitting, and I'm really happy to have what he's providing offensively right now, and they don't have a better option right this second. So go ahead and play him. But it's really good that Brian Hayes is as good as he is at third base because they absolutely have to have it. All in all, the injury situation could be worse, I suppose. You guys know about Jared Jones, right? He got transferred to the 60-day. We talked about that before. I'm a little bit interested to see what they're going to do with that 5th and 6th spot in the starting rotation. And I think when we get to our next segment, the week ahead, That's probably where we're going to start. There's nothing better than catching an MLB game live. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and the smell of the ballpark food. And if you're looking to go last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. With last minute deals, all in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as Game Time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On. And as the Pirates regular season is coming up, I can count on them to help grab tickets that meet my needs. In fact, my favorite time to use it is when I'm traveling. I just used it last year when I went to a San Francisco Giants game in San Francisco. It was a last minute idea, and lo and behold, I got some nice, really affordable tickets and a great seat at a ballpark wasn't all that familiar with before. So really, really good service. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates as we take a look at the week ahead. Let's see. NL Central play starts up this week. Everybody excited? First, the Cardinals come to town, and then the Bucks head to Cincy for a weekend series at Great American Small Park. The Reds are off to just about as tough a start as the Pirates. In fact, they both have 3 wins. And I think neither fan base expected that, to be honest, especially the Reds. I think the Reds really, really, really felt like they had a division contender this year. Again, it's super early, but the division is kind of shaping up almost how we thought. The Cubs are at the top. Milwaukee's right there. The Cardinals got off to a decent start, so they're ahead. And then you got Cincy and Pittsburgh down at the bottom. The Pirates are going to go with Carmen Mlodzinski, Paul Skeens, and Mitch Keller against the Cardinals. With Thomas Harrington still being on the roster, it tells me he's either going to be moved out for a reliever or they're going to use him as a piggyback for Carmen. I kind of wondered how they might handle this. This is just my read on it. For all I know, like I said, we could find out that they make a move tomorrow to send Thomas Harrington down and replace him with another reliever. I don't know. I don't really know what they'll decide to do. Hunter Stratton's a guy that could probably make his way up here soon. I think Kyle Nicholas needs a little bit of work, actually. I don't know if you guys – I still see people clamoring for him as though he's the same guy that put up the numbers he did last year, but he had a rough spring. And he's having a rough go of it here early on in AAA. I think that's a guy you at least want to start seeing positive signs from before you start thinking about calling him back up. But I don't know. It looks like they're going with Carmen Mlodzinski. They've named him the starter. Last time he got through 3 innings really, really strong, and in the 4th inning he just exploded. Their thinking here could very well be like, let's let that same situation play out, except this time let's have Thomas Harrington there to jump in and maybe carry the tote a little bit further into the game and see if you can't make it look like you got one clean start out of those 2 kids. Because Harrington, got punched in the mouth in his start. He really did. I could see using him as a piggyback, but it is a different situation for the kid. It would be denying him a start up here, moving him to the bullpen. He's obviously not going to buck against whatever they want him to do. But that might be how they play that 5th and 6th spot here for a little while. Usually those things kind of work themselves out. The schedule either leaves breaks and it becomes almost unwieldy trying to juggle all the pitchers and make this kind of a schedule work. you kind of run into situations where all of a sudden Paul Skeens hasn't pitched for 8 days, or you're throwing some of these guys that are real creatures of habit like Mitch Keller off. Like Mitch loves being on his schedule. When you start messing with his schedule, it messes with him. So it's really best to kind of settle in, and it's kind of surprising that the Pirates don't catch on to things like that with Mitch Keller. They've done it to him for 3 or 4 years now, where they mess with his time in between starts, and his first time out after they've messed with him is always bad. And he just got punched in the mouth by the Yankees. So you can blame the Yankees if you want, but I didn't have a good feeling going into the home opener with Mitch Keller, mainly because they changed how much rest he had in between. And with Mitch, it's up or down. It doesn't matter. You're just changing his routine. You're going to change him. He always struggles. Maybe he gets in his head. I don't know what he does, but something goes on there. Pitcher announcements don't go beyond the Cardinals series, but you can kind of guess where it would go from there. We'll be back into the Bailey Falter, Andrew Heaney territory when we get into Great American Ballpark. As good as Andrew Heaney was, and he really was yesterday, Great American Ballpark is not a wonderful place to have Andrew Heaney pitch. He's a fly ball type pitcher. So is Bailey Falter to a degree, although they both have been showing a little bit more of a penchant for the strikeout than I think we were anticipating going into this season. It's not what we've seen from Bailey Falter. It's not really what we've ever seen from Andrew Heaney. I'm not saying he can't get strikeouts or he's incapable of it or doesn't have that kind of mix or stuff. He does. He's just traditionally a guy that, like, in order to be a starting pitcher, when he's been the starting pitcher, he tends to not strike as many guys out. It's probably along the same lines of what Paul Skeens decided to do with seeking contact early. So it is what it is on that front. It's a big week for the Pirates. It's a big week in general for the NL Central, which really they're all pretty much off to a bad start. The Cubs have jumped out in front. They have also played more games than everybody. Not that that's helped their record, but they've done a lot better outside of those games when they faced LA and Japan. So the Cubbies are jumping out in front. Milwaukee treading water, beating up on the Reds recently, which is probably a theme to watch out for in this division, because if the Cubs and Brewers wind up being able to just beat up on everybody else, well, their records could really inflate and they could really make some changes. You've got some other playoff teams that are already starting to set themselves up for at least a hard climb back, like the Braves starting out 0-8. That's a playoff team everybody saw. Well, they're already in position where they're going to have to fight their way back. I'm not saying they're incapable of it. They're a talented team, but you're probably looking at a team in that division with the Mets and Phillies and even a resurgent Nationals team that should not be the patsy they've been in the past. And, I know the Pirates just got, beat 3 out of 4 down in Miami, and everybody thought Miami was going to be one of the worst teams in the league. But suddenly they've got a pretty young core of offensive talent, at least, that looks like they're going to be pesky to play against. At least they're continuing to have success after they were done with the Pirates, and that's really the litmus test. You can't say, oh, they won 3 or 4 from the Pirates, they're going to the playoffs. I'm not saying that. I don't think ultimately Miami has the pitching to get where they need to get. In fact, I think they'll still trade Sandy Alcantara, but the offense has come a long way. They really have some young stars, the kind of young stars that you'd love to see Ben Cherington start bringing in. What an interesting weekend it was, though. The home opener was crazy for a lot of reasons. I'll talk about that a little bit more on Thursday's show when we don't have, a fresh game to talk about. But yeah, for right now, good weekend of baseball was not had at PNC Park. It may have finished the right way. Thank goodness it did. But it certainly was rough to watch. The Yankees came in here and did what the Yankees should have done to a team like the Pirates. The Yankees are going to do that to a lot of teams. I'm not going to judge what the Pirates are based off this contest alone or this weekend's contests alone, but there's no way to look at these two teams on the same field and think that they're in the same stratosphere. That's not the type of thing you want to be saying 5 or 6 years into a rebuild. You want to be hearing different things coming out of your own mouth. You want to at least feel like, they got us, but we were in every single one of those games. They could not say that this weekend. And a couple great pitching performances in extras really kind of helped them get to the point where they're able to say they hung in there at all. The Yankees boat raced them. It was a crazy, crazy series. Let's have a better week. NL Central time. Make sure you check out all the Locked On shows on the NL Central, especially the Reds as we get close here, and the Cardinals. Those two, they'll talk about these games just like I will, and you'll get their perspective of the things they see in the matchup and the things I see in the matchup. Compare and contrast the two. I think that's a fun way to go. A lot of you have seen me and Jeff Carr talk back and forth on my other podcast several times, and you know how much I love talking about those two teams. The Reds and Pirates are on they are trying to do the same thing in slightly different ways, and it's interesting to watch. Thank you for making Locked On Pirates your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long, get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's all I got for you tonight. Stay locked.